that I know we have several folks in the audience here tonight that took the trip from Lincoln to be here, and I'm incredibly honored that you would do that, and I will see you again in August, if not before, at one of the other events that I do. This year we are doing town halls, obviously, in Columbus, and we're going to pick another city somewhere in the 1st District to make it as convenient as I can to as many folks as I represent. Here's the way I want tonight to work. I'm going to speak for maybe 3 or 4 minutes about one issue, and then I'm going to turn it over to questions and answers. Usually I talk for about 20 minutes and give folks an update. I think we've had enough people come here that have things on their mind. Let's get to your feedback, and I will take it. I also know we still have people coming in, and we want to make it possible for them to hear as much as this, so I am going to stay until 6:30. I know that the invite said 6. We're going to stay till 6:30, and we're going to do this right. So, here's the issue I want to talk about, and I think it's at the centerpiece of everything that's going on. As you can see here, we're $36 trillion in debt as a nation. This is something that I ran on when I signed up to become a member of Congress and earned your support in an election. This is something that I think is at the very center of what we have to be thinking about as members of Congress. It jars me that we are spending more money to pay the interest on this debt in any given year than we are spending on our entire Department of Defense and our armed forces. That puts us at risk as a country. It puts our future at risk, and it is the number one thing I worry about when I think about our children, our grandchildren, their children someday, because they will have to pay this off if we don't figure out how to do it. I rue the day, and if we don't act, I rue the day that we are unable to pay our bills. If we think we have problems today, if you think we have problems today, imagine a day where we can't make good on our Treasury notes. Imagine the day that your IRA, where your savings account, where your child's college fund, where everything we do in business is, our money's worth nothing. That is going to happen someday if we don't get a handle on our national debt. Now, we're going to have a conversation tonight as Americans. We're going to talk about what we think we should be doing, and some of you are going to say, you are doing too much, or you're doing too little, or I don't agree with this cut, or I don't agree with that cut. This tonight is an opportunity for me to listen to you, to learn from you, to answer your questions, but I want you to know I'm guided by this. This really matters to me, and I think it matters to all of us. It is a national security issue. If you don't already know, China, India, Brazil, folks from around the world, they own this debt in part. We as Americans have to figure a way through this. So the last thing I'm going to say before we get to questions is that, yes, there are Republicans in this room tonight, there are independents, and there are Democrats. There are people in this room that did not vote for me and most likely will never vote for me. I am your congressman. I am here to listen to you as much as I am anybody else. What I would ask tonight is that we talk to each other as Americans. We don't have Republican problems or Democrat problems. We have American problems. And there are a couple students here from Columbus. And I want to stress, I am so impressed with Columbus Public Schools. I want to thank their superintendent, their principal, their athletic director. They made this facility available to us. I want to thank the mayor and the people that are here for public safety to keep us safe. I know that some of you in this room are angry. I know that some of you in this room are emotional, and I know some of you in this room are concerned. I also know there are people in this room that feel very strongly in the opposite direction, that things are going the right direction. Here's what I want to do tonight. I want you to feel comfortable telling me what you want me to know, but when somebody else is on the microphone or when I'm interacting with somebody, let's let these students from Columbus Public Schools get an education in what our democracy is all about, and that is you telling me what you think, but I need an opportunity to tell you or give you the answer, and then you can ultimately decide if you're pleased with that or not. That's not up to me. So, with that, let's begin the process of questions. And Kim Kwapnowski, she works on my staff. She's also a Platte County Commissioner here in Platte County. And the way it's going to work, she's going to read off 3 questions. After each question that I'm going to answer. And then we're going to go to 3 questions from the audience, where Taylor is going to have a microphone. You're going to ask your question, and then I'm going to answer it. So that portion with the microphone, each person will have 30 seconds. Kim, why don't you start with our first question tonight?
Okay, the first question I have is, why support a president attacking the legal system?
Could I have you say the question one more time?
Yes, why support a president attacking the legal system?
Okay, let's take that question. We are a country that lives under the rule of law. I am an attorney that took an oath to support the Constitution. I took an oath as your member of Congress to support the Constitution. And I believe that there is an obvious, always constant tension between the 3 branches of government. When I was the Speaker of the Nebraska Unicameral, I saw this tension between the governor leading our executive branch, the state Supreme Court, and members of the legislature. I truly believe, and I will defend this every day, Congress, under Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution, has the power of the purse. I know that. I know that. And I have responded to many of you that have expressed concerns about this, that I take our Article 1 responsibility very seriously. And I am working in Congress to make sure that the cuts that are identified, to the extent we agree with them, are codified. I also believe that ultimately the court system and the executive branch under Donald Trump are going to have a series of court cases that are going to work their way through the system. And ultimately, we are going to live under the rule of law. Now, you may not agree with that right now. You may not agree with that answer. But I trust the court system to operate. It will do a good job regulating that tension between the branches of government. And ultimately, I am going to do what I can, as I have done in the legislature, to protect the prerogatives of the legislative branch and our article in the Constitution under Article 1. Next question.
Okay, next question. What are your plans to cut Social Security?
I want to be this is a very easy question for me to answer. So, as you know, we are in the process of reconciliation, budget reconciliation. Under the federal law, well, it's okay. We're just getting started here. Under the federal law, you cannot change anything in the law as it relates to Social Security in the reconciliation plan. The Senate parliamentarian would never approve it. The federal courts would never allow it. Any changes to Social Security are not on the table, and I will not cut your Social Security. It is a promise between you and the federal government. So any idea that Social Security is somehow in peril or in jeopardy is absolutely false. It is absolutely false, and it cannot even be dealt with in the reconciliation process. So that is a very clear answer to that. Next question.
Okay, next question is something similar. What about Medicare?
Well, Medicare is in mandatory spending. There are going to be, anytime you talk about Medicare or Medicaid, we have to find a way to deliver services to the people that they've been promised to. People over the age of 65 rely on Medicare in this country. At the end of the day, when you talk about health services, there may be changes to systems, but they ultimately should not affect the care provided to Americans. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the deal. Here's the deal. That $36 trillion number is not going away. It is not going away unless we deal with Medicare and Medicaid. Let's remain calm. Let's remain calm. Let's remain calm. And let me remind you, if you're going to ask me a question, let me answer the question. If you're going to ask me a question, you have to let me answer the question. And here's the challenge with this bad banter right here. The longer this goes on, the fewer questions we get to. The fewer options that people that have driven 2 hours here get to hear me answer a question. I understand you're upset. I understand you're upset. But you're not moving this process forward. You're stopping it. I would suggest you put a card in to ask a question. Next question.
Okay, those are 3 questions, so we're going to move to the mic.
We have a question over here. If we can have quiet, we'll ask a question.
Hey, we have somebody over here that's asking a question. Let's let her do that. Thank you.
Representative Flood, thank you for your concern about the deficit and the debt. Here's my question. Even if we laid off or fired every single federal worker, we would not come close to dealing with the amount of money that we have to pay to service the debt. None of us want that. These are brutal, cruel cuts that do not seem to be necessary in the manner in which they've been made. But nonetheless, were we to actually move against the entitlements, we would still be dealing with an $800 billion service of the debt. With all the nations that our president has insulted, Japan, China, Great Britain are the major purchasers of that debt service. How will we deal with that with all the bad will that he has created?
Okay, thank you for your question. From where I sit, 2 things have to happen. We have to cut our spending annually. We have to cut our spending, and we have to grow the economy. Okay, we've got multiple conversations happening here. I need you to put a card in if we're going to have this conversation. There's 2 ways to address this $36 trillion problem. One is to cut spending, more than $1 trillion a year, and the other is to grow the economy. And we're not going to grow the economy if we don't pass the 2017 extension of the tax cuts that you're already living under. There's 2 ways. There's 2 ways to get out of this mess. We've got to grow the economy, and we've got to cut spending. And when you cut spending, you have to make difficult decisions. And those difficult decisions mean finding government efficiencies. And for that reason, for the first time in decades, we have a president that is cutting spending. And he is looking to find efficiencies. And I support that effort.
We have another question.
Next question.
Next question.
Go ahead and ask your question.
First of all, Congressman Flood, thank you for being here to have a town hall. I'm a Democrat. I believe in free speech, but I think we need to let him answer the questions because some of us here don't have such good hearing anymore. So I would like to hear what he says.
Thank you.
I am a constituent. I'm not a paid operative. I came here from Lincoln. And my issue today is veterans. My father, Norbert Arnoldi, served in the Marines during World War II. He survived Iwo Jima to return to the family homestead and help feed the nation and help my mother raise 6 unruly kids. When he needed a hip replacement and later in treatment for epilepsy, he relied on the Veterans Hospital in Grand Island. Now, millions of dollars in veteran services have been cut by an unelected billionaire and his whiz kids. None of them have shown the bravery that my father did or that the greatest generation has done. Meanwhile, veterans who continue to serve veterans in the federal services have been unceremoniously fired. And I want to hear your comments on providing our veterans with the services that they've earned and that they deserve. Thank you.
Something a lot of people don't know is that every day, members of Congress like me work with veterans to make sure they get the care they were promised and that they are owed. And when you serve in the military, we owe you and we want to provide the very best care that we can provide because your father, your relatives, they earned it with their bravery, with their service, and with their citizenship. So at the end of the day, we will keep our promises. Congressman Mike Bost is the chairman of the Veterans Affairs Committee. He is about 7 doors down the hall from me. I walk to the House of Representatives floor with him several times a month. I know, he knows, that committee knows, your members of Congress know that that is a sacred obligation that we must follow through on. That does not mean there are not places to find efficiencies in the system. There has been no decree officially about what kind of cuts the veterans system could experience. But I do know that we have seen a significant increase of staffing in the Department of Veterans Affairs since 2019. It may be that we see staffing from 2019 levels. I don't know. But ultimately, any cuts that are made in our government have to keep the promises that we have made. And we clearly owe the veterans their very best care. And if sometimes I think if the hospital's too far away, the Veterans Hospital, let's get them easier access into health care in rural areas because I know that's a long ways to go. So here's what I would say. If you encounter a concern about a veteran's care, call my office. Ask for Carter, ask for Noel, ask for me, and I will contact the VA and I will check up on them. If I have to go to the Veterans Hospital myself to talk to the administrator, I will do that because ultimately, on behalf of everybody in the 1st District, that is ultimately my job of oversight. Here, I will express to President Trump and to members of the United States Congress any concern I have about how the people of the 1st District are being treated. And if I believe that the Department of Veterans Affairs is not caring for the good men and women that deserve those services, I will be their advocate. That is my job. Thank you. All right, next question.
Hello. Thank you for coming. I appreciate that. It's my understanding that your wife had breast cancer and went through diagnosis, treatment, recovery, and is doing well. I appreciate that for you. I have a 20-year-old daughter, and I lost a sister to breast cancer. You, Mike Flood, have decided to capitulate your job of monitoring the funding of places that do research for breast cancer. I don't see how you can stomach that you did that because you are cutting the rug out from other. You are cutting the rug out from under future scientists who might develop new treatments, new diagnoses, so that my daughter, when she's your wife's age, might not get the most up-and-coming research available to her. You are disfunding NIH, Johns Hopkins, the National Science Foundation, and you can't put that on anybody but yourself and your GOP colleagues. I would like to know how you personally stomach that decision. Thank you.
Anybody that has been through a close relative or a friend or a family member with cancer knows how deeply personal that is. And I have had that experience with my own wife. So yes, I do know what that process is like. Here's where we're at. We're at the dawn of a new presidential administration. The 119th Congress is about 60 days in. We have the Department of Government Efficiency that is looking at and is some, it is looking at the funding that's available for research, and in some cases that funding has either been identified or suspended or is on hold or has been terminated. I don't believe we're in a process today, at this moment, to say in any way that medical research funding is going away. I support medical research funding. If it is currently paused, if there is a concern, we take those up individually, and ultimately where we need to go is to a balanced budget. A balanced budget where we... How can you be against a balanced budget? How can you be against a balanced budget? All right. All right. Okay, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. So your proposal to solve this is to tax the rich. So, let's talk about this, because this is actually a very good point. If you look at President Joe Biden's last State of the Union address, he had a proposal called the millionaire's tax. President Biden proposed a millionaire's tax. And let me tell you, if it was enacted, it would raise $50 billion a year. That's about 200 times less than what we need to address that. So even your proposal to tax the rich fails wholeheartedly. Oh, and also, by the way, that would also hamper our nation's growth. If you're going to ask me... All right, next question.
Okay, we are going to move to the box question now. Mike, would you oppose going to war with Canada?
Yes.
Okay,
Canada is a longtime important ally of the United States of America. They have fought next to our soldiers in every major conflict. We share a very peaceful border with them. The Canadians are good people. I respect them, and I want to cohabitate on North America's continent with them, and I want them to feel respected. I do appreciate Canada.
All right, next question is in regards to GPS. Why is there no backup system? And what is the plan with Russia having to back up? That's kind of what
This
it
is
says.
about global positioning systems?
Yes.
Well, global positioning systems are susceptible to our adversaries, and there is new technology that the Israelis are developing, that American manufacturers are developing to help aid and guide some of our missile systems that can't be thwarted from an adversary. I think that the American people should be... I have the good fortune to be aware of some of the systems that we have developed to protect our country. And if I understand the question correctly, we will have ways to route around anybody that is capable of compromising a global positioning system.
All right. And then the third question is there anything you will do to stand up against Trump?
Last November, Americans wanted a change. They wanted a president that would deal with issues like this. They wanted a president that would usher in a new era, a golden era for America. And I know there are some of you in this room that are very concerned about our 47th president, but let me tell you something. A great majority of Nebraskans and those in the 1st District voted to elect Donald Trump president in this state. Now, by virtue of the fact that he's the president, I intend to work with him. I intend to seek out many of the reforms that I believe he's focused on, which is rebuilding our military, securing our border, which, by the way, is more secure today than it has been in the past 40 years. I intend to work with President Trump to find efficiencies in our government, and I intend to work with President Trump to get us fair trade around the globe. In the situations where I disagree with the president, I will use the opportunities I have as the vice chairman of the Main Street Caucus of 85 Republican members and my opportunities to visit the White House and share those concerns with the administration. I will work behind the scenes and in front of the scenes and in front of the cameras to do what I think is in the best interest of the people of the 1st District of Nebraska. And the way I do that is I get input from people like you. I get calls from people across Nebraska. I visit with Nebraskans. I read a call log every single day. I'm sure many of you have been on there in recent days. Every single day, I read every single call that comes in. I call people back when I have time. Sometimes when I'm getting 450 calls a day, it's hard to be very effective there. But here's the deal. Just like I did when I was in the legislature, if I need to go to bat for a veteran, if I need to go to bat for the veteran system, if I need to go to bat for the funding for Offutt Air Force Base, or for our roads, or for our courts, or for whatever it may be, I will do that, and I have done that for 20 years. And that does not change. That does not mean that you and I are going to agree on every position I take. But when I need to, I will be happy to stand up. I have been doing that for Nebraskans since I was elected to the legislature in 2004, and I'm not going to stop today, regardless of who's in the White House.
Okay, those are the 3 questions. We'll go to the microphone.
All right, here's our next question.
In 1987, Ronald Reagan stated that tariffs don't work, they only hurt the economy. By your inaction, you are showing us that you support Trump's tariffs on our allies like Canada, as well as Trump wanting to annex Canada as our 51st state, so invading a sovereign nation that was our ally. Our stock market keeps dropping, hurting our economy, prices keep rising, which hurts your constituents that are not rich, which is the majority of us. My grandfather fought in South Pacific during World War II, fighting for human rights and against fascism, and Hitler, who Trump admires and thinks did good things. So, the UN ambassador for U.S. last month voted with Russia, North Korea, and other dictator countries that Russia didn't invade Ukraine and did nothing wrong. This is where we're at. When are you going to stand up? And we're also on the Human Rights Watch list. When are you going to stand up for us?
Let's talk about tariffs. In 2000, U.S. trade totaled $2.0 trillion, more than 4 times China's $474 billion. From 2000 to 2024, U.S. trade expanded by 167%, while China's trade surged by 1,200%, surpassing the U.S. in 2012. By 2024, total trade reached $5.3 trillion for the U.S. and $6.2 trillion for China. What did COVID teach us? 2024, COVID taught us that if we aren't a nation that makes things, if we aren't a nation that builds things, if we aren't a nation that controls our own destiny by celebrating and growing manufacturing, we are losing to China. President Trump is interested in fair trade. As we saw during his first term, President Trump successfully used tariffs to rewrite. The only way this is going to work, folks, is if I get the opportunity to answer the question. What message are you sending to these Columbus High School students? I don't think your high school civics teacher would endorse that behavior. Okay, so like I said, thank you for the opportunity to come back to this. I truly believe, if you look at when President Biden came in after President Trump's time, he pretty much endorsed President Trump's trade policy. The challenge is, because he left most of those tariffs that President Trump put in place when he was the 45th president in place. He left those in place. President Biden, however, did not engage on trade, and at the conclusion of his term, President Trump returns and is going to use tariffs to right-size these relationships. We need to be a nation that makes things. And of all communities in the 1st District, Columbus, Nebraska makes things. This town is a manufacturing juggernaut because of the men and women who have built this as a manufacturing community. And what I'm telling you is that we have to stand up and support this effort, because there will be an adjustment period, but we will be a lot better off down the road. And I truly believe that. I truly believe that. And for the record, well, I think...
Okay, next question, Taylor.
I don't know if the microphone's on.
Go ahead and ask.
Sorry. I would like to thank you for being here and allowing us to ask you questions in person. I would also ask that people allow him to answer. I'm here because I'm angry, and I want to hear what you have to say. I drove from Omaha. I would like to ask you about the bipartisan law that was ready to be signed prior to the election to finally deal with some of the border issues. And Donald Trump strong-armed you to vote against it. It was a bipartisan bill to deal with immigration for the first time in I don't know, 30 years or something. And you deep-sixed it just so that you could weaponize the issue in the election. Will you please tell me what you and Congress plan to do to once and for all respect the people and the immigrants that come to this country and fix our laws so that people can come here legally and stop kicking this ball around? Please.
Thank you for the question, and thank you for the extremely respectful way that you communicated your concerns and your anger. I appreciate that. Here's what I would say. When President Trump took office, 60 days feels like 90 dog years. And so trying to think back to last year, I think Senator Langford was involved in that from Oklahoma. That did not make its way over to the House. I know there were some provisions in there that concerned members of the GOP Senate. It did not get considered in the House. That said, we find ourselves where we are right now, and that is our border is more secure today than it has been in 40 years. And we're going to pass a reconciliation bill to make sure the Border Patrol has the resources they need to carry out the directives of our federal law and to ensure that we can get as much fentanyl off of our streets as possible with the cooperation of countries like Canada and Mexico.
Okay, one more
All right,
question. One more question from the audience.
All right,
or
please ask your
microphone.
question.
I have a very simple question for you to answer. Would you agree that your constituents are the boss of you, not President Trump?
Absolutely. I have the honor of representing the 1st Congressional District in Washington because of an election process that has happened 3 times now after I became a member of Congress in a special election. So yes, I am accountable to you.
Okay, next question here. What are you going to do to protect our alliances in NATO and persevere our democracy in the face of our faces of Putin's aggression?
For almost 3 years now, every single time a funding bill for Armenian Ukrainian military has come up, I have always voted to support Ukraine. I support Ukraine. I've traveled to places in Eastern Europe. I've looked at the folks in Warsaw in the face, and they are terrified that Vladimir Putin wants to take them down next. And for that reason, I do not feel like Ukraine should have to give up any land to Russia.
Okay, next question.
I also believe that the Russians should return the 20,000 Ukrainian children they kidnapped. I want better relations with Ukraine, and I want a strong NATO, and I want us involved in NATO.
Okay, next question. Do you think Social Security is a Ponzi scheme?
Social Security is a promise that started under Franklin Delano Roosevelt that you have been paying into your adult working life. And let me tell you something. I had my wife's from Columbus, actually, and one of her good friends, her husband died early on in their marriage, and they had 3 children. And Social Security made it possible for her to raise those boys with enough money to make it possible. And so Social Security isn't just there for you when you turn 62 or 65 or whatever age you intend to retire. It is there when you need it the most, and you've lost a mother or father or a loved one like that. And so it is very personal. It is very important. It is a promise that you entered into with the federal government. I do worry about the Social Security Trust Fund. In 2032, it's not going to be where it needs to be for it to be solvent. But that does not mean I want to cut anybody's benefits. That means we have to pay attention to it, and we have to make sure it's solvent. Next question.
Okay, next question. Why did you vote in favor of a resolution budget that will cut $800 billion to Medicaid when people in Nebraska benefit greatly from the program?
Say that $800 billion part again.
Yeah. So why did you vote in favor of a resolution?
Just give me a second. I got to be able to hear the question.
Okay. Why did you vote in favor of a resolution budget that will cut $800 billion to Medicaid when people in Nebraska benefit greatly from that program?
I think what you're talking about is the budget reconciliation process identified, I think, $880 billion of cuts through the Energy and Commerce Committee, which has a very large jurisdiction over a lot of different federal programs. We have not put together, we don't have an architecture on how those dollars would be cut. We have not seen the bill come back from the Senate yet. So it is premature. But the good news about this is all of you are going to get a chance to see any of the proposed cuts before anybody votes on it. I encourage you to wait for that process, wait for that bill to come out, and we will get through this. Next question.
Okay, we will go now to the microphone. Taylor?
All right, next question over here.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Flood, for being here. I've been a DoD civilian since I swore an oath to defend the Constitution about 11 years ago. One of my favorite assignments was serving as an instructor at the Air Force Academy. These past few years, I've been working on a major modernization program. I won Civilian of the Year in my directorate last year and earned the top appraisal amongst my engineering peers. However, I did it all remotely from Nebraska. The options I've been given are leave the good life or get terminated. Obviously, I don't want to get terminated. I'm not planning to leave the good life. First, a move would uproot my family, and I'd still be at risk of getting riffed once I moved to my new base. It would cost the government $78,000 to $83,000 to move me because of all the real estate fees involved in a PCS. And I would be near 15 to 17% of my colleagues is all. The third option is an exemption, but that's been made nearly impossible from where I stand. The Secretary of Defense has required that he approve all exemptions, which is 7 layers of chain of command above me, and that seems to be impenetrable. So 2 questions. What can you do, Mr. Flood, to communicate to the DoD and the Air Force they need to develop a standardized, reasonable, and achievable remote work exemption process, which accounts for the immense cost of moving everyone back to their duty station? And 2, can you please tell our stories, and by our, I mean my story and other remote workers who are working with integrity?
Thank you very much for your service, and thank you for your question. The best way that I learn is by doing. And in your situation, sir, what I need you to do is I need you to find Carter Smith. Carter, where are you at? Wave your hand. Okay, he's back there with a gray suit on. And make sure you catch him back there. He's got the suit on. We need to get all that information from you. We need to find out what your preference is. And then we need to reach out to the agency, which this sounds like the United States Air Force. And we will do that. We will do our best for you. And I hope that we can find a way to make this work for you. And thank you again for your service to the country. And you know, one thing I would stress to you is if you have a situation where you know there's a personality involved, it's delicate, whatnot, call our office. It doesn't matter if you agree with my politics or not, or if you agree with my work in the Congress. If you have an issue and we can help you, we will do everything we can to lift mountains and move mountains for you. We take it very seriously, and I personally look at all the open cases, and I keep track of where they're at, and I sometimes call folks and say, hey, this isn't moving for this reason, but we're going to try this, or how about we try this agency? We will do that for you. Next question.
Another question here. Hi, sir. Thank you for having this opportunity for us. My first question my only question, I guess, pertains to the national debt that you put up there and say that is your main goal. You passed out flyers about the Tax and Jobs Act, but failed to mention that was put in place by Trump and your party. So my question is, why did you design the bill, or why did the Republicans and Trump design the bill to expire for middle class but not the rich?
Well, extending the 2017 tax cuts is very much relevant to the middle class. As you will note from my information that I have up here, a family of 4 making $76,000, which is the median income in this district, will see a tax increase of almost $1,600 if we don't extend the tax cuts. 91% of taxpayers in this district would see their guaranteed deduction slashed in half. 8,000 family-owned farms in Nebraska, District 1, would have their death tax exemption slashed in half the next year. Almost 80,000 families would see their household's child tax credit cut in half. My point to you is that the extension of these tax cuts from 2017, they do affect the middle class. And Donald Trump, your president, would also like to get rid of tax on tips, and we're trying to figure out how we could do that. Next question.
Sure.
Folks, we've got somebody here that's got a question.
Mr. Flood, Congressman Flood, I just heard you in the last few minutes say that you support NATO, that you will not allow cuts to Social Security, that you support Ukraine, but talk is cheap. Our president our president, our vice president, and Elon Musk have caused damage. They've humiliated the United States because we failed them. We are failing to support democracy. We have a president who openly supports Putin instead. And I have called your office over and over, and I have received answers from you, and they do nothing about any of those things. You have done nothing. When are you going to do something?
Unfortunately, sir, you're wrong, because at every corner I have voted to support Ukraine. Not everybody in my party has. Every single time there's been a vote to fund and provide arms to Ukraine, I have voted yes. Every single time. Not once. When it came to supporting Israel, I voted yes. When it came to supporting our military, every single time with the NDAA, I have voted yes. When it comes to supporting Offutt Air Force Base, which is in our backyard, I'm there all the time. I have voted yes. My record stands in stark contrast to what you just said, and I think it's important that these facts are in the record. Next question.
Okay, we'll go here. The question is on corn prices at $4.50. We need E15 year-round in all states. We need to add value to egg product. E15 is easy, biofuels, and sustainable aviation. I think it's just a comment, if you'd like to talk on that.
I am a co-sponsor on a bill to make E15 permanent and year-round. It would be a game changer for Nebraska farmers. We need corn well above $5. There's a lot of farmers in this room probably that are losing money this year in a big way thanks to our commodity prices. Next question.
Okay, the next question I have, this is a 26-year military veteran. He served in Iraq, and he's very concerned that the current administration is disseminating the ability for VA health care, and just wants to know what you're going to do for veterans health care.
Again, it's a promise we make to our veterans, a promise that we will keep. The Veterans Administration will provide the best care we can afford, and we will do everything in our power to make sure that health care is not only good, but great. It's important to us.
Okay, then...
If you'd like to ask a question, I would suggest you just grab in line. Okay, next question.
Okay, the next question is, this is to address the federal deficit. Plans to pursue closing tax loopholes versus maintaining 2017 tax cuts.
I'd have to know which loopholes that people are worried about. I can tell you that we are, the Ways and Means Committee, of which Adrian Smith from Nebraska sits on, is doing a thorough review of all of our tax policy, and there are going to be provisions in there that will change and modify our tax policy. And to the extent there is a loophole, if there's something that you're concerned about, let me know about it so that I can work with the Ways and Means Committee to address it.
Okay, those are 3 questions, so we'll go to the mic now.
Our next question is here.
Hi, I do want to thank you for actually doing a town hall, so thank you for that. The rest of it's probably not going to be so pleasant. So first of all, I do want to say shame. I want to say shame for your comment, your quote that you said, President Zelensky's approach today was disrespectful to President Trump and undermines the goal of bringing peace and that. So shame on that. But, second of all, I am the daughter, the niece, the sister of veterans, Korea veteran, Iraqi war. I have received the American Legion Auxiliary newsletter for quite a long time. For decades, they have stated that we are underfunded and understaffed, repeatedly stated that. You have said otherwise with Doge. Who's lying, them or you?
We owe our veterans the best possible care we can afford. I'm going to say it again. It's a promise we made. It's a promise we'll keep. And it is important not just to Republicans. It's important to Democrats. It's important to independents. Supporting our military and supporting our veterans is something that should unite us as Americans. And I will work as your member of Congress to address that. I do believe that that White House meeting was a disaster. And I believe that President Zelensky should have signed that agreement. The other thing I believe is that you read from a press report, and in that same press report, I said 4 things. I said, number 1, Ukraine should give up no land to Russia. They should return the 20,000 kidnapped kids. We should support NATO, and we should have better relations with Ukraine. That has been my position on Ukraine from the start. Next question.
All right. We have another question from over here. Here's our next question.
Thank you very much for having an in-person, face-to-face town hall. Not very many congressmen are doing that. My question will be about a way you can demonstrate accountability to the citizens. But I have a few things to say first. China doesn't really own very much of that debt. That debt grew over 40 years of unneeded tax cuts to big money. China has a growing influence around the globe. The only way we're going to counter it is with a coalition of allies working together. We are currently alienating our allies. My question is one of process. You've mentioned that you believe in accountability to the people. You've talked about the budget reconciliation process that's upcoming. Big legislation causes big change. There are winners and there are losers in big legislation. The ACA helped a lot of people, hurt people with like individual mandates. In the budget reconciliation process, will you commit to being fully transparent with the American people by requiring a 2-week period of time to elapse after the final draft bill is created and before votes are taken by members of Congress, so the people understand the winners and the losers and have a chance to give you their feedback and opinions before you cast your vote?
That seems exceptionally reasonable, and as a former Speaker of the Legislature, we have built-in systems in Nebraska to ensure that happens. I would hope 2 weeks. Now, here's the challenge. I don't make the calendar. I don't decide when bills get put up. I have an obligation to vote one way or the other when a bill is presented, but I will take that suggestion to the Speaker of the House, and I think that is an entirely reasonable suggestion. I will say, though, if they put out a proposal and it's 2 weeks down the road, everybody should expect that there could be amendments along that made to make it better. And I don't think you're suggesting that's not a good idea. But putting out the base proposal and then giving people time to work on it, I'd be very open to that. Again, it's not my decision, but it's a good suggestion to bring back to the Speaker of the House.
All right, we have our next question here.
Hi. I'm a lawyer and a retired Internal Revenue Service employee for 27 years. I was an estate and gift tax attorney. I know auditing. On day one, federal employees take an oath of office to the Constitution of the United States. Over the last 2 months, I've heard the President and Republicans besmirch the integrity and work ethic of federal employees. I've not seen any Republicans stand up for the hardworking federal workforce. Doge, Elon Musk, and the President, as well as the Republicans, are looking for waste, fraud, and abuse. None of the members of Doge are auditors. If they were, they would review data, arrive at preliminary determinations, ask questions, and make a final determination. If the process was being done correctly, we wouldn't have the hiring, firing, rehiring, firing, rehiring. There needs to be a thoughtful analysis of how we're doing these cuts. Sure, there's waste, but the way they're going about it, they're cutting people, and there's no plan for transfer of knowledge. Yep. So my question is, why are we allowing an unelected person, Elon Musk, to make decisions on our government agencies? And why are we giving a tax break to the people making over $1 million while harming the average citizen and those who need the most to be protected the most?
Hey, Taylor, would you do me a favor and paraphrase the end there? I had trouble hearing the last.
Why are we allowing Elon Musk to make these decisions? And why are we making tax cuts when we have a deficit like this for the people making over $1 million?
I want to reduce the burden on middle-class taxpayers. That's why I'm supporting the extension of the 2017 tax cuts. As it relates to the conversation we're having today about government efficiency, I get it. There's a lot of people in this room that don't support what DOGE is doing. But for the first time, we are making some progress identifying places that we can reduce the budget, and this is something we have to do as a country, as a nation. This doesn't go away unless we deal with the spending. Next question.
Okay, we'll go back to having questions from the box. Let's see here. How will you protect Medicaid and Medicare from all the proposed budget cuts? Same question. Let's try a different one. Social Security is very important for seniors and others. Have you and Congress considered increase the age of eligibility, increase rate of payroll from 1 to 1.5%, and increase wages subject to tax? These could increase life of Social Security.
Well, I think we've talked a lot about Social Security, so let me focus on the first part of that question, which is Medicare and Medicaid. I was in the legislature for 10 years. I was the speaker for 6, and every single year I dealt with situations where we were making changes to our state Medicaid program, and every single time I engaged in that process. One time we had a $1 billion shortfall, and I worked the better part of a year coordinating all of our 14 standing committees on figuring out how to navigate balancing our state's budget. And I can tell you the only way to do that, and this is the way I will operate on your behalf in Washington, is to sit down with the people that are affected by any of the proposed changes and find out, first and foremost, how those proposed changes would affect them, the vulnerable, or the people they serve. I did that very successfully and navigated those waters. I am meeting with the Nebraska Hospital Association. I'm meeting with medical providers. I'm meeting with the people that do services for the mentally ill, for the vulnerable. I am working with the people that run some of our most important behavioral health services in the capital city right now, trying to understand what this could look like. So I am at the table. I am sitting down with the people that provide these services to some of our state's most vulnerable, and I will work with them in good faith to navigate all of this. And ultimately, I will vote on what's in the best interest that I can find for the people of the 1st District after doing my homework, and that's the way the process should work. Next question.
Okay, another question is, what are you doing to stop the activities of unelected and unconfirmed Elon Musk?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to note that every agency, for the most part, has a cabinet secretary that is ultimately responsible, and the executive branch, by and through President Trump, has said that ultimate responsibility for those agencies rests with the cabinet secretary and then ultimately with the president and the vice president of the United States. I know you disagree with what Mr. Musk is doing. I know you disagree with the way this is rolling out, but this is the process that we are using to find waste, fraud, and abuse. Next question.
We're getting a lot of similar questions that you've already answered. So here's one. You've stated that in the arena of sports, Republicans will continue to fight for the next generation of women. And how are you doing that?
Well, first and foremost, to protect the rights of women, we have to make sure that we keep boys out of women's sports. And an overwhelming majority of Americans believe that that is and should be the case.
All right, thank you. We will go to the mic.
All right, our next question is here.
Okay, I did want to thank you to to start with, for having this town hall. I know, congressional leadership didn't want you to, so I appreciate that. But I actually want to talk more about Elon Musk. So why is Elon Musk a better person to audit our government for waste, fraud, and abuse than the inspectors general that Donald Trump fired? Because Elon Musk has conflicts of interest out the wazoo. He gets $40 billion a year in federal contracts from the federal government.
I'm having trouble hearing you. Can you slow down a little bit?
Elon Musk gets $40 billion a year in funding from the federal government. What makes you think that has no conflict of interest, that he has no conflict of interest? Do you think he would cut that before he would cut our Medicare or our Social Security or our jobs?
I support Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency. Next question.
Next question.
Next question right here.
20 to 40% of hospitals in Nebraska were at risk of closing prior to you voting for the budget proposal that will cut money from Medicaid. 1/3 of births, 43% of behavioral health services, 44% of all kids' services are covered by Medicaid in Nebraska. This will likely cause rural hospitals to close. I work in a tertiary care facility that receives desperately injured patients from rural hospitals who do not have the resources necessary to keep these patients alive. If these rural hospitals close, people will die needlessly. Why are you doing this to your constituents? Human lives are worth so much more than that stupid debt ceiling.
I just introduced a bill, I think 2 weeks ago, that would specifically provide resources to rural hospitals and our critical access healthcare system. We have a tremendous network of rural hospitals that have benefited from the critical access system. I have been working on behavioral health issues for 25 years. I grew up in a house with a mom who was on the mental health board and a dad who was a guardian and conservator for some of the most vulnerable mentally ill people in the community. I know how important those services are. I know how important it is to have access to inpatient, secure care. Okay, at the end of the day, we have to balance a lot of different interests. Number one is this. Number two is the services. The idea that this is not a consideration when we talk about how to navigate our future makes no sense to me. If we aren't dealing with this, we aren't dealing with the 800-pound gorilla in the room. This is going to take it all from us someday if it is left untouched. Next question.
All right, here's our next question.
You talk about national security, yet you have done nothing to stop Elon Musk and his little band of tech geeks. They went in and they had read-write access to the agencies, and that is a huge national security threat. I took enough computer classes to understand that it takes like 30 seconds of someone with an unsecured device in a building and connected to a mainframe to wreck everything. The fact that you have not done anything to stand up to him, and this talk of I support Trump, I support Elon Musk, that's not enough. Okay, we need actual action. We need actual cybersecurity experts to go in and make sure that our government is secure, because Trump is in the pocket of Putin and you are letting him continue.
Well, first and foremost, the premise of your question is going to be hard to answer because you've made your mind up about a number of things. But one of the things that you said was that I've done nothing as it relates to access to our Treasury system. I have, on more than one occasion, had direct conversation with Treasury officials, including the Secretary of the Treasury. I'm on the Financial Services Committee. I have oversight jurisdiction over, as a member of that committee, over the U.S. Treasury system. And I have directly asked and gotten an answer from the Treasury Secretary as to the access that DOJ and its employees have. I also have confirmed that the people working in that agency or in that Department of Government Efficiency have passed the security tests. They have the appropriate clearances, and they are working under a president and a Treasury Secretary that has, the president's been elected by the American people, and the Treasury Secretary has been confirmed by the United States Senate.
Okay.
Next question.
Next question. What's your comments on privatization of USPS, which will cause a loss of 7.9 million people employed by 1.92 trillion mailing industries? This would cause economic problems.
I can tell you that I've been getting a lot of, well, I'll answer the question in a moment, but I want to provide a little preface. I have been getting a lot of calls from people in the David City, Brainerd area, and in other parts, rural areas of the 1st District, about mail delivery being very delayed. For my benefit, by a show of hands, who here has had challenges with timely delivery of their U.S. mail? Okay. So here's what I'd say. I haven't studied this. I do believe that for the U.S. Postal Service to be privatized, it requires an act of Congress. I also believe that if this were a serious consideration that was presented, it would be something that I would want the assurances. I have no interest today in myself in privatizing the United States Postal Service, but I would welcome the conversation about what's happening with mail delivery because I have been getting calls from across the 1st District with concerns about that. And so, yes, I would be interested in knowing more. Next question.
Okay, next question. What will you do to uphold your oath for the Constitution?
I intend to uphold my oath for the Constitution, and that oath I entered it into January 3rd, I think, this year, 2025, and I intend to honor it just like I have honored my oath as a officer of the court in the court system in Nebraska, just like I honored my oath as a member of the Nebraska legislature. I will honor my oath.
Okay, next question. Justify you using your time and energy to increase bank profits and reintroduce predatory overdraft fees.
Well, one of the greatest financial systems in the world is housed right here in the United States of America, and it's a system that is predictable, it's regulated, and it is relied on by the rest of the world because 55% of the world relies on the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. We have to make sure that people have access to all the products and services that they have. What I'm talking about specifically as it relates to overdraft fees. There's this idea that if we drop the fee to $4 or $9, banks aren't going to provide that service. And whether you like it or not, there are some people that, and they've testified in front of our committee, that rely on the system that has overdraft fees involved to make their bills work every month. And they don't want to worry about whether or not a check's going to cash or whether their debit card's going to work. You've got to let the market work. You've got to let them have access to these financial products.
All right.
Next question.
We have a question over here.
Yes.
None of the issues that you have on your poster boards up there justify how the administration is doing this. I would like elected officials like you to stop acting like what the administration is doing will do anything to address the national debt. I think what drives people like me crazy is that we would like you to talk about something real. We want you to talk about what is really on our minds. And that is that Trump is using the economy as a justification for subverting just about every law in this country. Stop. Why do you keep acting like it's business as usual and the budget resolution and acting like his behavior has nothing to do with your job and what you are doing and what you say to stand up to him? Elon Musk has zero data to show any of the savings that he has done. That has been debunked everywhere. He puts numbers up, then he takes them back down. Oh, whoop, actually it wasn't $50 billion, it was 232,000. This is insanity. What are you doing to be real with people about how Trump is breaking the law to get away with the way he is doing this? You have an oath. You have an oath. And I don't see you living up to that oath.
We live in a nation under the rule of law, which I support. And at the end of the day, I intend to, and I have upheld my oath, and I will come to meetings like this, and I will listen to what you have to say, and I will tell you where I'm going on issues, and I will ask for your input. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I will do what I think is right. And you will hold me accountable, or you will, I guess, support it. But I'm here tonight to communicate that, and I think at the end of the day, we are, 60 days into the Trump administration. We have made tremendous progress on securing the border. We have made tremendous progress in getting Americans to think about how we're going to deal with this. And these issues aren't easy to solve, and it's going to take a process where you communicate and I communicate and we talk about where the country's going to try and find common ground. Okay.
Next question.
We have another question over here.
Hi, Congressman. I'm actually from your district. I appreciate you being here. To the students that are here watching, democracy is messy.
It is messy.
Within hours of being notified of a restraining order by the Chief U.S. District Judge, James Boasberg, President Trump called James Boasberg a radical left lunatic, a troublemaker, and called for his impeachment. I want to know, I have a two-part question. If you, like President Trump, believe that the judiciary must now kowtow to the whims of the executive branch, allowing the executive to take precedence in ruling exclusively in its favor, or if you believe that the judicial, legislative, and executive branches are separate but equal as outlined by our Constitution. And if you do believe that the three branches, I'm sorry, I have a two-part question. If you do believe that the three branches are separate but equal, each with their outlined duties, when do you and your fellow Republican members of Congress intend to take back the power of the purse that you have allowed to be taken over by Elon Musk, Doge, and others who are defunding projects and grants that have been previously approved by Congress, as is its duty, your duty? One example would be USAID funding, which was impounded even though it had been congressionally appropriated. You stranded our own people in other countries because you allowed them to be stranded. When I don't need you to yell, I'm speaking, thank you. This is just one example, and I'm aware that a federal judge, District Court Judge Ali, has already ordered the administration to pay bills for existing contracts and grants through February 13th. But when are you and Congress going to take back your responsibility?
Well, you have some good questions there. There are three branches of government. They are co-equal, and they should be respected, and that is the judicial branch, the legislative branch, the executive branch. And I am and have practiced in the judicial branch, and I have respect for judges. I have respect for the work that the court does, and I believe that the court has an important role dealing with the tension that can exist between the three branches of government. And so you will not hear me disparage a judge. I may disagree with a ruling, but I have tremendous respect for judicial officers. And for this country to work, we need to respect judges. The second point, the second point I would say, well, remind me where we're at. That was kind of a long question. I think we talked about that earlier. I said and I've said in a letter to a lot of you, I 100% believe that the power of the purse, it is in Article 1. It belongs to the United States Congress, and I will work very hard to make sure that the Appropriations Committee draws the budget up and that the budget is the budget of the United States, and that once approved by the President or overridden, it will be respected. Next question.
Okay, next question.
I just think we all deserve to know why you choose to support the president who has constantly sexually harassed young women and his own daughter. I mean, the comments he made about his own daughter. Standing this far away from you, I feel so uncomfortable in my own high school. I don't know why you choose to support someone like that. It's hurting me every day. I just want to know what you think about that and all the comments he's made about women that way, is like sexually harassing everybody. His own daughter, the things he makes about his own daughter, it's disgusting.
First of all, if you're a student here at Columbus Public Schools, you are very fortunate to go to a school that I have a tremendous amount of respect for. And I would imagine the school administrators here and the teachers have a tremendous amount of respect for you. And you should feel safe here. This should be a place where you feel safe. The people of Columbus are good people, and they want you to have the best opportunity at an education and opportunities in life as possible. And I want that for you too. As it relates to your question, at the end of the day, we need, as Americans, and I'm trying to do it tonight, many of you are trying to do it tonight, we need to treat each other better. We need to understand that these issues aren't red or blue issues. These are American issues. Next question.
Okay, next question. Okay, we will go to the box questions. What will you do to support farmers affected by cuts in U.S. aid or by immigration policies?
Well, first of all, we went through this in 2017 when President Trump was in office the first time, when some of his trade policy affected farmers and ranchers. The federal government provided an economic aid package for our farmers and ranchers, and I did that in December as well. Now, you have to look at the long term to make sure that we keep our farmers and ranchers solvent so that they can continue to feed the world. What was the second part of that question?
Immigration policies for lack of workers. So immigration policies for lack of workers with farming.
H-2B visas are something that we have worked on. I truly believe that as this border gets secure, that the United States Congress is going to have the opportunity, once this border is secure and that Americans are satisfied that it's secured, that we can articulate an immigration policy that helps address many of the issues that we have. So here's the deal. We're at 6:25. I want the opportunity to make a closing statement. I want the opportunity to tell you why I showed up here. At the end of the day, I appreciate each and every one of you for coming here tonight. Obviously, we have differences of opinion in some areas, but I also think I saw some nods, some heads nodding from time to time on issues that maybe we haven't thought about. Ultimately, I am accountable to you. You will decide whether I do this job. The people of the 1st District will decide whether I do this job. I will continue to do town halls. I will continue to show up in person. I will be in Lincoln in August. I will be in other communities as necessary. I will treat you with respect. I will welcome you to Washington if you're there. I will sit down with you in your communities. I will see you in parades. I will help you with your constituent issues, and I will do my best job I can to do everything to serve you as a member of the United States Congress. To those of you that are obviously agitated, I would say this. This is a big country. Kids, democracy is in fact messy, right? I hope that you see that the promise of this country is still very much alive, and that getting involved in public service, while it can be difficult at times, has a tremendous amount of value. And you can do things for people that are in need. At this point, I want to encourage you, if you have any questions, to reach out to my staff, which are out there. I encourage you to maintain a relationship with our office on the phone, on email, and in person. I will continue to show up. I will continue to take your suggestions. With that, I want to thank the good people at Columbus Public Schools. I want to thank